Welcome to another OU Insider Under the Visor YouTube Live, powered by Riverwind Casino. My name is Brandon Drumm, here with Parker Thune, Spencer Forsythe on the board. Recruiting. We're going to talk recruiting. We're going to answer your questions, talk some softball, maybe some Jeremiah Fears, see maybe where he'll end up in the draft, maybe some pre-draft talk there. Lots of stuff we can dive into here with you guys tonight on this May 12th, 2025. Before we do all that, we want to thank our sponsors, though.
That we do, and that starts with our presenting sponsor, Riverwind Casino, which has been OKC's premier gaming destination for almost 2 decades now. Nearly 3,000 electronic games, table games, bars, and dining options, plus the best live music in the metro. It's no surprise that Riverwind is always a good time, right off of Highway 9 and I-35, which is the exit you would take to get to my house in Blanchard if you came down this way. Now, also want to give a shout out to Jana King, a proud partner of OU Athletics and the greatest team to ever clean, delivering spotless results from stadiums to any size business across the country. So if you want to check out their solutions and find which one is best for you, go to janiking.com. That's JANIKING.com. A word from Mando. If you aren't familiar with Mando, you need to get familiar because everybody, to a certain extent, deals with BO. And Mando was created by a doctor who saw firsthand how commonly BO was being misdiagnosed and mistreated. Mando is clinically proven to block odor all day and control odor for up to 72 hours, and you can use it everywhere. Use your imagination here. Literally everywhere. Mando's deodorant product options, they come in multiple different forms. You've got the solid deodorant stick, you've got spray deodorant, cream tube deodorant. You can try a little bit of everything in Mando's starter pack, which is perfect for new customers because it comes with that solid stick deodorant, the cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice, like the mini body wash, try the bourbon leather scent, as well as the deodorant wipes. And you're going to get free shipping as well. Now, a special offer for our listeners here. New customers are going to get $5 off their starter pack with our exclusive code. That equates to over 40% off your starter pack when you use code INSIDER at shopmando.com. That's SHOPMANDO.com. Please support our show. Tell them we sent you and let us know how great that bourbon leather smells once you give yourself the chance to give it a try. Now, finally, we need to talk about the best place to turn your sports knowledge into cash. Let me demonstrate. Brandon, the Thunder have a Game 5 coming up at home in OKC. Who do you think is going to pop off for the Thunder that evening?
I'll go J-Dub.
J-Dub. So if you're going to roll with Brandon's advice / expertise, if you believe that he is indeed an expert on all matters of Thunder basketball, which is someone that watches basically every single game all season, I would think the man knows what he's talking about. Go to prizepicks.com and lay money on J-Dub to hit more than his projected points total. Prize Picks is the best place to turn your knowledge into money. With millions of members, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 2,000 times your cash. You can run your game all season long on Prize Picks. Now, every Tuesday, which is tomorrow, Prize Picks is going to discount several projections on the board, usually by 15 to 25% as part of their Taco Tuesday promotion, so keep an eye out for that. You sign up today, you get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. So if you want to run your game with Prize Picks, you need to download the app today and use code OU Insider to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code OU Insider to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Run your game with Prize Picks. And now, as we launch into our subject matter for the evening, we'll remind all of you guys that if you have a question pertinent to Oklahoma's recruiting board or any other subject, we do not limit our discourse here to matters of recruiting, though that is where we'll spend the bulk of our time this evening. You can send us a chat via, or a question, I should say, question, comment, opinion, whatever, via the YouTube super chat function. With as many chats as we have that pile up over the course of the show, we can't hit them all. But the promise that we make to our listeners every single week is that if you submit a super chat with any monetary amount attached to that super chat, be it as little as $1, we will answer your question. We will discuss your comments. We will read your super chat live on air and expand it into a discussion. So, with that noted, let's proceed, Brandon. And nothing happening and a lot happening all at the same time for Oklahoma on the recruiting trail. No
Yeah.
commitments now in over 100 days. So, this is a lengthy drought to be certain, but it may not be long before Oklahoma gets on the board again.
It may not. I mean, I think we all assumed Oklahoma was it was going to be what, Thursday, Friday, Thursday. What was the 15th? What is 15th?
15th would be Thursday.
Thursday, yeah, Thursday. We all assumed it was going to be Thursday. The Fighting Rat Lashleys decided that was probably not going to be the case.
SMU has some juice right now on the recruiting
They
trail,
do.
and
They do. He's still
certainly,
from LSU.
yeah, the expectation heading into Ryan Gilbert's commitment announcement on Thursday has shifted. Oklahoma was the leader in the clubhouse there for quite a while, and now it looks like SMU that is best positioned to land his pledge this week. So the drought persists for Oklahoma, at
Yeah.
least for a little while longer.
Well, and
You'd think.
I don't think it's going to be that much long. Look, and I hate to say I don't think. Right now we assume it's not going to be that much longer. Let's just throw that out. There's a reason why I haven't put in a pick for said player, and we're talking obviously. Naturally, we're talking about Brian Harris out of Jacksonville, four-star defensive tackle, Jacksonville, Florida. That is. I look. The reason why we haven't put in a pick is because this all kind of came spur of the moment. Like he's visited Oklahoma a couple times. Like that we know. The thing about it is that it's been a quiet recruitment. For the longest time, it felt like he was leaning towards Penn State and or Michigan. Those were the top two teams. He has since decided the SEC is where he wants to play. So now it seems to be an Oklahoma SEC or Oklahoma, South Carolina, and a Alabama battle. And so with that, you don't want to get the cart before the horses. You just don't, because we've seen it before. NIL, crazy things happen, and everything can turn like that. And if you don't know what you're listening to audio, I snap the finger really quick. But it turned just like that, Parker, positively for Oklahoma, because Friday he comes out and says, this is my top 5. He has all these official visits that he's had set up. I ask around right after he comes out with that top 5 and, what are you hearing? Blah, blah, blah. Unequivocally told, not Penn State, not Michigan. He wants to play in the SEC. Okay, cool.
So who does that leave? Alabama, South Carolina, Oklahoma.
Oklahoma, right. So then I start talking, and a couple of Oklahoma sources are like, yeah, man, communication's been hot. Feels like it's moving in the right direction. Still kind of worried about South Carolina, Alabama. Okay. 48 hours later, you get Bates tweeting, retweeting a bunch of stuff about Brian Harris. You get the Steve Wiltfong pick put in. I reach out to a couple of people, and they're like, look, we feel like it's moving really well. However, and I'm going to quote this person, I don't feel like it's done until they announce the clock hits 00 and they're signed. So no matter where the momentum is, the way NIL works is exactly what they said. You don't want to get too quickly. You don't want to move too fast. You don't want to feel too good when it's maybe a chance for this thing to turn. And so that gave me hesitancy. Then I talk to somebody else and they're like, look, that kid's going to Oklahoma. So I don't know, Parker. I don't know. I want to say Oklahoma's in a good spot. I feel like they're in a good spot, but the kid doesn't really talk a whole lot. He doesn't tip his hand to anybody. And this thing happened really quickly. Like really, this is a token Todd Bates move, by the way. Trent Wilson, right?
Very
Um,
reminiscent of Trent Wilson,
yeah,
if indeed it
Marcus
is Oklahoma.
Strong. Um,
Well, Marcus Strong was unique. That was
it
a
was
very
unique,
unique
but yeah,
recruitment.
but it was
He,
quick.
well, not really. Marcus Strong got the offer in like September.
But they didn't push for him,
And
and then when they did, it happened real fast. That's what I'm talking
well,
about.
not it didn't even happen real fast when they started pushing because he OV'd in November and then waited all the way until signing day to,
Man, it
and he
feels
didn't
like
even
that.
announce his commitment. He just signed with Oklahoma and that was it.
Yeah.
So, um,
Again, Todd Bates move.
yeah, a lot of certainly some shades of Trent Wilson if indeed Brian Harris does commit to Oklahoma next week. Gonna have to sustain the momentum there, certainly. But if Brian Harris does commit to Oklahoma, uh, again, ton of resemblance to how the Trent Wilson process unfolded.
Yeah.
Because what's interesting is it was Penn State, right? Like Penn State, Penn State, Penn State, that was considered to have the edge for Trent Wilson. He'd been there a zillion times throughout his
Yep.
recruitment. Visited Oklahoma once before he committed. Brian
Yeah, he
Harris
visited a bunch
similarly
afterwards. Yeah.
has visited Oklahoma once to this
Yep.
point. But yet, he decided to commit early before OV season. And when that commitment date rolled around, it was the Sooners for Trent Wilson.
Mm-hmm.
Could it be the same effect with Brian Harris? If so, man, you tip your cap to Todd Bates because not a whole lot of dudes out there are convincing elite talent like Wilson, who was a top 100 national prospect, and like Harris, who is a blue chipper and still rising in the 2026 cycle, to shut down their recruitments for good after one unofficial visit.
You just like, just light bulb came on. You want to know another player that is very, very similar to this?
Who's that?
Oklahoma was in on him and recruited him fairly hard, but we never really gave Oklahoma a chance until like right after they showed up on their unofficial visit. And then they got quiet again, and it felt like maybe Texas was trending a little bit because
I
they
know
went
where
to
this is
Texas
going.
after Oklahoma. Yep. Jaden
Jaden
Jackson.
Jackson.
Very similar to Jaden Jackson. Like, Jaden Jackson just took an unofficial visit. He was there for 2 days, was there with David Stone.
It was an OV. It was an OV. His visit was
Was
an
it?
OV. Yeah.
Oh, that's right. They can take multiple. They can take like 7 OVs. I always forget that part now. Like they can take unlimited. But yeah, he had a whole bunch of OVs that he'd already taken. He took Oklahoma. He goes down to Texas. We all assumed that Texas was going to end up making a push there at the end. Ohio State came in, made a push there, and then all of a sudden, Oklahoma. It was Oklahoma. All of a sudden, I'll never forget the phone call that I got. I called you. I was at the lake house or the beach house, and I called you. I was like, bro, I think Jaden Jack. And then John Garcia calls me. He's like, dude, I'm hearing Jaden Jackson in Oklahoma. Like that thing just happened so quickly. And this is kind of where this is going. This is like I said, Todd Bates. This is what he does. He works in the dark, and he keeps his communication up with everybody, so he can. I don't know, man. He snaps and goes and gets who he wants, and he's good at it. He's really, really good at it, Parker. Like, I don't think there's any other way to put it. The man can recruit. Even in the NIL era, when people talk about relationships don't matter, this dude goes out and does it. And so if we're still going with that, if Brian Harris ends up at Oklahoma, this is another big get for Todd Bates. You watch Brian Harris's film. Have you watched it?
Yes. It's impressive.
It's defensive end, 6'5", 290 pounds, defensive end. And he moves really well. He's going to remind a lot of people of David Stone, but he's not as refined as David Stone. I think that's the thing you got to look at. Like, not as refined, but he's the type of guy that Todd Bates will get, and he'll turn him into an All-American because that's what he does. Like, he's a great teacher. And so
He's a
I,
souped up version of Marcus Strong. I remember
yeah,
Marcus
that's a
Strong.
good
Yeah,
that's a good
I remember
analogy.
watching Marcus Strong's tape after Oklahoma offered him, and it was clear that he was nowhere near his ceiling, but there was raw potential there, and you could see why Todd Bates in Oklahoma liked him. It's kind of the same deal with Harris. It's not as speculative of a take. It's not as developmental of a take. Brian Harris is somebody that can show up and he can play year one. I believe that. I don't know that he'll be asked to, but I think he could.
Yeah.
Certainly, though, you get the sense watching Harris's tape that there's a lot left to develop and refine in his game. And once that happens, you're looking at a dude that could be a menace north of 300 pounds.
Yeah, you get the comments in the chat. Oh, incoming 3-star you, incoming 3-star you. Look, every year you all
He's a
say the
four
same
star, by the
thing.
way, to be
Yeah,
clear.
he is a 4-star. Every year the same thing is said. About this time, everybody is worried about recruiting. It's not going to turn out well, and then they throw out a top 10 class. So like official visits haven't even started yet.
Yes, and I feel like I I find myself saying this so often, man, so often. And at a certain point, it feels like you're talking to a brick wall. But rankings now will not necessarily reflect rankings when the class wraps in February. A
Yes.
3-star now, if this is a good eval and a good take by Oklahoma, odds are he's
Mm-hmm.
going to be in blue chip territory by the time the cycle wraps. And even if he's not, these are the types of these are the guys you tend to trust when you look at their track record of recruiting and development. And
Who was a
you can
three
say,
star this time when they were recruiting him, and even when they got the commitment of said defensive tackle? And he became a freshman All American, by the way.
yeah, Jaden Jackson. Jaden Jackson was a 3-star
And
when
Eli
Oklahoma got
Bowen.
involved. Yeah, Eli Bowen was a 3-star when Oklahoma got involved.
Yep.
So just because they're a 3-star now doesn't mean they'll be a 3-star when the cycle is over in February.
Robert
There
Spears
were never
James,
there
Danny
might never be a
Stutzman.
greater example than PJ Adibawara. He was unranked, completely unranked when Oklahoma offered him and started recruiting him. And then he became a 3-star. And then he became a mid grade 4-star. Then he became a high grade 4-star. And then by the time the Under Armour All American game rolled around, he was a consensus 5-star across the industry. So if Oklahoma actually signs 15 dudes that are 3-stars in December, then we can talk. But until then, you even look at like what they have in their current class. A guy like Ryder Mix, I don't trust that Ryder Mix. I believe he did recently pick up the 4th star on
Yes,
Rivals,
he
but
did.
he's a 3-star other places. I don't think he's going to be a 3-star by the time the
No.
cycle wraps. That is a
Joe John Finley
fantastic
can
football
get
player.
Joe John Finley can get 4 stars.
He can has a 4-star.
He can has a 4-star. Last one transferred, by the way.
Yeah, to Louisville of all places.
Yeah, crazy. I guess Green Arrow said people only say that because we are so negative. Well, I don't try to be negative. I just try to. There are times that we are negative, and we're negative because we're just keeping it real with you, just being honest. And there are times where we get called sunshine pumpers because we say something positive, and nobody wants to hear positive. Sometimes you can't win. You just can't win sometimes. Hey, Daryl Revels, thank you so much for the super chat. Over under on 2026 class recruiting ending in the top 10. Are we going with transfers? Because
No, 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 no transfer. No,
with transfers, I would say top 10 for sure.
we're just talking straight recruiting class. Same way it's always been.
Uh, I was asked this today on the board, and I said between 8 and 12 is
That's
where I
kind
had
of
it.
my feeling as well. If you ask me to put money on it, I would say Oklahoma winds up just outside the top 10 of
Yeah,
the rankings.
and for me, I'm with you. I'm like 10, 11, 12. Like that's where I think they're going to end up. And I don't think that's necessarily bad. It has a lot to do with like Oklahoma's young. They're going to
Yeah.
return a ton of players after this season.
Well, and
Ton.
the
They don't
reason I,
need a lot.
yeah, exactly. They're not in a position where you feel like they need to reload at a
Yeah.
specific position. Well, linebacker they need to reload certainly. Like linebacker, yes, it's time, and they've cast a very broad net as we've talked
Yeah.
about. They're going to get some talented backers. Everywhere else, man, you've got plenty of excitement with what you have currently on the roster, so you're just kind of accounting for the numbers that you're going to
Yep.
lose to graduation in the portal, and that's fine, right? So to me, the reason I think Oklahoma winds out just outside the top 10 is because the
Numbers.
floor for this program historically, when they have a normal size class, i.e., not a 2025 class with 18 commits or signees, that is, or a 2021 class with 16 signees. When they're taking a normal size class, historically, the floor for this program is about number 12 in the recruiting rankings because of how consistently they
Mhm.
recruit across the board and the ability to accrue blue chip talent at all positions. And,
And they
if you want to,
evaluate well.
yeah, well, exactly. And if you want to pick on Joe John Finley for being the weak link of this staff, again, Ryder Mix is a guy that I believe will almost certainly occupy 4-star status and crack the top 250 by the end of the cycle. So you can't even claim that that's the weak link of the 2026 cycle for Oklahoma. But the floor historically has been around number 12. I think Oklahoma may be on the lower end of that spectrum. I can see them finishing in the 10 to 12 range simply because they are not in the mix for any 5 stars, with the
Yeah.
exception of Felix Ojo. And I don't think they're going to get Felix Ojo.
No.
They could, and that'd be great. That would be a nice
Deuce
surprise.
Gerald's. Deuce
But
Gerald's.
for the
Yeah.
moment, well, Juice Gerald's too. But again, I don't really
Yeah.
think,
Yeah. Not getting him
unless
either.
one of the
Yeah.
guys that they end up with rises into 5-star range, which is unlikely but not unprecedented when you look at what happened with Peyton Bowen and PJ in the 2023 cycle, for instance. Unless one of those guys rises up and gives Oklahoma like the anchor, and I mean that in the sense of heaviness to weigh down the
Yeah.
class's collective ranking.
Mm,
Unless you
Jay
have a guy
Cruel.
like that, okay,
Well done, BMD killer.
yeah, okay, forgot about him for a second.
He is
That
five
might
star.
do it. That might do it. That might do it if they can get him.
Yeah.
They got to fend off Texas and Ohio State, but that could be the star power that Oklahoma
Yeah. They're
needs
in a
to
good
sneak
spot.
into the top 10.
Yep. For sure. But you're correct. Like they're where they're at is exactly where they're expected, particularly because I don't like a lot of these teams that you're going to see get ranked ahead of Oklahoma. It's not just because they're going to have a bunch of 5 star. They're going to have the numbers. They're going to be getting 25, 26, 20. There's a lot of teams out there that are going to be losing a lot, and they're going to try to replenish a lot, particularly with it going potentially on July 1st into that profit sharing. A lot of teams are going to start trying to go after high school kids because they're going to be cheaper, and they're going to try to pay for retention. And that's where things are going to be. It's going to be a lot more base as this moves along. We expect the relationships, the retention. College football, I think, I'm not saying it's ever going to be the same because it's not going to be the same before NIL. Never will. But I don't think you're going to see the mass exodus and the mass, swapping of. Do you agree with that, Parker? As this thing moves further and further, I think you're going to see a lot less transfers than previously. I don't like where it's not like 2,500 kid players transferring Division One every winter. I think you're going to get 1,500, 1,500. I think there's probably maybe 1,000 less. Would you not agree with that?
I would not agree. No,
Okay.
I think
Okay.
there's going to be the same amount, if not more, transfers moving forward. Because like, it's, I don't know
But they're
whether.
not going to get more money. That's the problem.
Well, no, they're not going to get more money, but I also don't know if some of these kids, especially with the support systems that they will have, and the people that will have kind of weaseled their way into positions of dominance within the power structure they're in, are ever going to learn. And what the lesson that needs to be learned in a lot of kids' cases is that there is not greener grass in the portal. You need to
No.
stay where you are.
Yeah.
But I'm not convinced that that lesson is ever going to get learned across the board to the
Yeah.
extent that it probably needs to.
Yep. Hola Kyle, appreciate the super chat, $5. Thank you so much, man. This Hola Kyle's a legend. If you go back and you watch
Oh yeah.
YouTube,
Shoot, I
he
remember
had
being
some
in
of
the
the
J
best.
school and
Yep,
cutting up his YouTube highlight videos to run on the student
legend.
newscasts.
Yep.
Yeah.
He says, "Love all you do. How often do you agree with the coach's evaluations? Any players you thought were duds and surprise once they hit the field?" Oh my gosh.
Okay.
Um, yeah, that's a loaded question.
That is a very low. I'm like,
No,
okay,
there's
I'll be
we
listen, I'm not
go
going
ahead.
to, on principle, I'm not going to throw anybody that's currently on the roster under the bus. However, I will tell you that in years past, I have felt this way about certain guys that
Yeah.
wound up being duds and transferring. I will address that. For instance, like I know they were just cobbling it together towards the end of the 2022 class. Like they were just getting who they could get because of the turnover on staff and how late it happened in that cycle. But man, like, when they took Jamarian Burt, I was like, really?
Well,
What is that guy gonna do?
he
He
was
played
really athletic. Yeah, but
he wasn't even
yeah.
really like he was just kind of a decent athlete without a position. He wound up playing safety, was at Oklahoma for a year, only appeared in the 49 nothing blowout against Texas, and then hit the transfer portal and wound up at South Alabama. So there you go. That is the
Cedric
type.
Roberts was mine, by the way. I
Cedric
never
Roberts.
never thought he was going to be worth much, and he never became worth much at all. And man, 2023, um, trying to go back and who I thought,
Ashton Sanders was a bit of a reach.
yeah, Champ was,
I didn't
yeah,
hate the take, but it was also like, okay, you're very clearly scraping the bottom of the barrel at this point, right? You're just taking a body for the sake of taking a body.
yeah, I agree with you there. I'll tell you this. I was never ever huge on Nathan Rollins Cabana. I just never could get myself to wrap my head around that pick, that
Oh,
get.
that's pre Venables though.
That's pre-Venables. That's right. But hey, he didn't state a specific time frame. I understand that. Um, but yeah, I never Nathan Rollins Kabange, I never could get myself to because he was a basketball player and he had a basketball mentality. He was soft.
He was soft and
Soft.
see, I quite the opposite. I loved Rollins Kabonge. I was very wrong about him. I'm okay. He was another guy that wound up at South Alabama, coincidentally. Um,
Yeah.
but obviously there wasn't a lot of football tape there. I was just like, man, I put a lot of faith in Jamar Kane with that
I
one.
did.
I was like,
I
man, he's so supremely athletic, brand
mhm.
new to the sport. Like, there's some untapped potential here that Kane is going to be able to coach out of him. And he just, he was too soft to take it.
Yeah.
Happens.
But Kane, I mean, obviously he defensive end coach for my Denver Broncos, defensive line coach from Denver. I love Jamar Kane. He's a dude. Guy knows how to coach, knows how to recruit. Um, I know how much he did not want to leave Oklahoma. I will say that did not want to leave Oklahoma. That was always that was a tough one there. Tough one. Um, if you were a betting man at this point, like, well, let's keep it with the Brian Harris talk. Um, if you were a betting man and you were going to fill out, and somebody said you got to put a parlay down of who's going to be the defensive line class for Oklahoma in 2026, who would your 3D tackles be and your two DNs be?
I could only have two DNs.
You can have three DNs. I
I
really
was about to
don't.
say, I think they're going to take three DNs.
I think they're going to take six total on the D line. I agree with that, but I was just trying to make it easy on
I was
everybody.
looking back through some more of these names. Here's another one that I was just like, what
Oh
are we doing?
Lord.
Alton Tarver. Remember Alton
Awful.
Tarver?
Yes, awful. I wanted to name him, but didn't he turn out to where's he at right now?
JUCO, I think.
Okay, well, yeah. Who am I
He took
thinking?
a
Oh,
year
I'm
off of
thinking of
football. Like
Moulton
you're
from
thinking of
Moton.
Cavante Henry, I
No,
think.
I'm thinking of Moton, who was at Miami, ended up being pretty good.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, Cavante
'Cause-
Henry had a nice little bounce back too, but Alton Tarbert never amounted to much of anything, which was frankly quite predictable. Um,
but they had to take somebody. Like you got to,
they did, and I understand. I understand why they did.
yeah. I'll go first. Just
That was before the age where you had a zillion half decent options in the portal if you didn't land who you want, because like the
that's
portal
true.
wasn't nearly as chock full back then as it is
Yep.
today.
No.
Um, okay, so
Yeah.
on the
You want me to
defensive
go
line,
first? Just name my six, I guess.
let's
I'll let
see
you.
how well we align here. I'm pretty sure, I know we talked about it earlier today, and
Yeah.
there's not a whole lot of mystery about who the three most realistic options for Oklahoma at defensive tackle are. You have
Yeah.
Taj Overton, whom you just went to see last week,
Valdenstone. Yep.
Valdensone, and then
Brian
Brian
Harris.
Harris.
Yep. There you go.
So
That's
if I had to mock it, those would be my three defensive tackles. If I had to mock the defensive ends, here's where things get interesting because
Matthew Nelson, right? You got to have that in there, right?
yeah, you got some guys on this list that have not been to Oklahoma yet. Matthew
Yep.
Nelson being one of them, Daniel Norman being
Yep.
another from down at STA, DeAnthony Lafayette from Lake Nona, Florida.
That was a shocking one, by the way.
Why is that?
Just I never really envisioned Oklahoma being like just a main. I don't know. Just that sounds like such an LSU guy.
Because Lafayette.
Yeah, I know. That's very, very like I know. I get it. I get it, Parker. I get it. But when I was like, man, that sounds like an LSU Tiger. It just does, man.
No, it does. Give me Krell, give me Daniel Norman, and give me Matthew Nelson. Those are my picks.
So you got Krell, Matthew Norman. Okay,
Matthew
so
Nelson,
Matthew
Daniel
Nelson,
Norman.
excuse me, Daniel Norman. Okay. Um, I kind of like your picks. Um, hmm. Yeah, they've been pushing pretty hard for Reston Layman too, though, and that's I don't know where that stands or how, but they've been back to see him twice.
Uh-huh.
I'm he's taking an OV to Oklahoma, correct?
Not confirmed. Not
Not
confirmed
confirmed.
yet.
And I did like the DeAnthony Lafayette offer as well. Yeah, I'll just go. So you said who were your three? You said
Matthew
Krell.
Nelson, Daniel Norman, Krell.
Krell. I mean, I'll just go out on a limb and I'll throw Rest and Layman out there. I don't. That third one, I don't really have a good feel for. I feel pretty good about Krell. Feel pretty good about Matthew Nelson. The third one at Parker, I just I'm unsure. Are you feel confident in the Norman? I
I
know
don't
people are gonna be mad that you did not say KJ Ford, by the way.
I did not say KJ Ford. That is true.
That is true.
Um I wouldn't say confident with Norman because he's never visited, like he's never been on campus. So can you be
Yeah.
confident with a guy like that? I don't know. I'm optimistic though, because I mean I and OUinsider.com members got to read the whole interview I did with him last week, but I asked him who his number one was. If he had a number one, he was like, I like OU and Coach Chavis right now. So it's kind of a
Wow.
blind affinity for OU right now, just based on the bond that he's been
Mhm.
able to build with Chavis. But I think there's a lot to be optimistic about with Daniel Norman, especially because look at that OV slate, look at the other
Yeah.
schools involved. That's a battle you should be able to win, right?
Hmm.
UCLA, USF. I forget who the other school is, but Tulane. There you go.
Yeah, and see,
Which
you name that, and OU fans are about to get really pissed off that that's who Oklahoma's battling for. But mind you, he is from Florida. Like Oklahoma is diving down into Florida, and I have to say their evaluations with Florida defensive linemen over the last 4 years have been pretty spot on, Would you not agree?
I would certainly agree.
So I think you got to take that in consideration. You look at it. I know you see a 3 star and you're like, oh my God, here we go, 3 star, Tulane, UCLA. What the hell is Oklahoma doing? Why is Chavis? He plays for St. Thomas Aquinas, mind you. Like last I checked, St. Thomas Aquinas is one of the best programs in all of high school football, period. And they develop nothing but studs from there. So there's that. Who else did you? So, and then you got Krell, who's from Orlando,
Yep.
right? And then obviously Matthew Nelson's from Bryan, Arkansas. But I
Hmm.
mean, even let's say Brian Nelson, or say Nelson didn't even come into this equation, and Oklahoma got Lafayette. Well, that would be 3 Florida defensive ends. You can go win a lot of games with 3 Florida defensive ends. I You go watch their film, and that's all you gotta say. And I understand, like, this is where people are supposed to, they see the oh, I guess I switched over to my Mac there for a second for some odd reason. As far as there you go. But people see that, and you got to understand that Jim Nagy is evaluating. He and his guys are evaluating, and they're seeing guys that they feel like can become NFL guys. And that's essentially what they're doing. They're going, if you develop these guys, you can get these guys, and you're going to hate what I'm about to say. But this is really how Oklahoma's viewing this. They're going to throw money at big time guys that deserve big time money, period. They're probably going to throw a pretty hefty bag at a Valvin Stone, at a Brian Harris, right? At a Taj Overton, at a Jake Krill. Like those guys are going to make a lot of money. You go to the offensive line side, the big 4 star, top 250 guys are going to make a lot of money. The quarterback's going to make a lot of money. Like those guys are going to make a lot of money. Then you've got these 3 star guys that have a potential to be 4 star, 5 star talents because they haven't tapped fully into what they can become. And Oklahoma's going, they're going to get paid, but they're going to get paid after they produce at Oklahoma. Develop, produce, pay. That is the goal. It's retention. From here on out, it's retention. Clemson's been doing this. They have. They haven't been going out and just spending crazy amounts of money on 5 stars left and right like they used to. It's been retention with Clemson. It's worked out for them. They're now back to being the Clemson that we all expected them to be for a long time. But they hit a bump in the road, and Dabo said that's what was going to happen. We're going to hit a bump in the road, but when we get things back in order, they're going to start winning and winning big, and that's what's happened. And so that's what Oklahoma is striving to be, is a team that you know these players for 4 years, just like you used to. You're going to still get the 4 and 5 stars. Those are still coming. I promise you, those are still coming. But they're still going to get those developmental guys that they think have a R. Mason Thomas type ceiling. They have a Robert Spears Jennings type ceiling, right? Like those type of guy. You know what I'm talking about, Parker? That
Yeah.
maybe they don't start out a Jaden Jackson type ceiling. They don't start out as a 4 star when Oklahoma first grabs them, but maybe by the end of the cycle, they're a top 250 kid.
I think the ideal progression, like for so many reasons, it is absolutely ideal if you are able year over year to recruit a bunch of dudes that follow the Robert Spears Jennings or Mason Thomas trajectory,
Yeah.
i.e., they're on the field a little
Danny
bit as a
Stutzman.
freshman, they take a jump as a sophomore, junior year is where it all comes together. And then senior year, they're monsters, ideally. We expect that from Robert Spears Jennings and R. Mason Thomas this fall. Time will tell whether it actually happens. But
Yep.
you got a machine that feeds itself at that point. If those are the types of guys that you're bringing in and developing consistently. By the way, somebody in the YouTube chat says, I thought on the KJ4 conversation, somebody said, I thought Emmett Jones was going to open up Duncanville for OU, but nope. Hey, listen, uh, I
They may
still like
still.
Oklahoma. I still like Oklahoma for Zachary Turner.
Mhm.
So business, Duncanville may indeed be open for business. Whether it's KJ Ford that becomes the first Duncanville Panther to pick OU since Savion Byrd, I'm less confident in that than I once was, but I will say I really, really like where they sit right now with Zachary Turner.
Yeah, and look, Robert Bacon just said we need better development. He's talking for sure, and he's talking about Oklahoma. Look, it's hard to develop guys when they leave after 1 year, right? Somebody else is going to get that, or maybe you did develop them and they just didn't want to wait. So now they go to an Oklahoma State or wherever they go, and they end up, or an Arkansas or wherever, and they end up shining at somebody else's place after you put in all that work. And that's what Oklahoma is trying to get away from. And they're trying to get away from that where they put in all the work, put in all the development, and then a player gets frustrated because they're not starting in year 2 or 3 and they leave. They're trying to get to the point where these kids stick around. They see the value in loyalty and, stick to itiveness and what that can become for them long term, as opposed to going out and doing it. And that's where I come from with this transfer. As far as like, I know, Parker, you think there's going to be more. There's not going to be a lot of value in transferring the way it used to with the. Now there is for some guys that develop, like the QBs are always going to have market value, right? They're at a program that they've taken to another level and they get in the portal, they're always going to make their millions because they're a quarterback. Defensive tackles, offensive tackles, like there's always those positions that are always going to get the money. Then you're going to have the guys that are just on the precipice of becoming a superstar or an all conference player, and they're just sitting behind somebody else that's at that level already, and they get in the portal. But they're probably not going to get the money that they would have this year, pre July 1st, going forward. And that's where I'm coming from with that. So I think this is going to be interesting to see how this is. Lewis Carter is a prime example. Nick said it like it's prime. He's a prime example of a guy that probably could have stuck around and eventually played and played quite a bit. Kip Lewis is a guy that stuck around and saw it through. Didn't transfer. So,
Could have transferred.
Could have transferred and could have been a superstar anywhere he went. And he stuck around and now he's going to be a superstar at Oklahoma. There was do you think when do you think they're going to go to the 16 team playoff?
I don't know.
Do you think it happens? I just saw that
I'm
question.
sure. I'm sure it does. Yeah. By the way, I also just realized what's going to freak everybody out with Zachary Turner. Even though I said and I'll stand by it, I like where Oklahoma sits going into OV season. He does OV to SMU before he OVs to Oklahoma. So
that's funny, but it's not funny.
I know. I laugh, but there are plenty of people watching that are not amused.
No. No, Rhett Lastly going to stick it, particularly coming from Duncanville. If you're a Duncanville player,
oh man,
they always end up at SMU somehow, some way.
SMU has some nice inroads at Duncanville.
Yes, they do. It's quite remarkable, to be honest. Suited Cowboy said Turner will go to SMU. You may be right. You may be right. I to be honest, if Oklahoma can pull Dallas Dickerson, I think they win big in the wide receiver category as far as evals.
Well,
and getting in on him early.
To me, at this point, the four guys, well, I'll say five. The five guys that I think OU has a very good chance with going into OV season are Davian Gross, awesome football player.
Yes.
Craig Dandridge, awesome football player. Dallas Dickerson and Zach Turner, both amazing football players. And then the fifth one, and a guy that I really like a lot, he's from down the Sunshine State as well, as Jaden Petit. Like, if you get three of those five, if you can land three of those five receivers, that is a whale of a class. If you want to go take a fourth, I don't even really think it matters who number 4 is at that point.
You think they take 4?
Well, and of course, I'm looking right past the fact that they have one committed right now in Daniel Odom. Whether he sticks or not, okay, then that you have a discussion on your hands there, but that's an entirely different can of worms. And if you were to land 3 of the 5 that I mentioned, That is the crux of a fantastic wide receiver class.
Do you
Fantastic.
do you want to see the chat just lose its mind? And what I'm about to say is probably gonna help it.
Please don't.
Do
Or
you
do.
you know exactly where probably gonna go here, but so with what you just said, Oklahoma could have a wide receiver class that is from maybe one from Texas, right? One from California, already committed, right? So Gross, Odom. You could have Dickerson and you could have Dickerson and Dandridge. Those could be your four. So you have Georgia, Texas, California. That's where your wide receivers are. You've got a kid that's a top 250 kid that's in your own town. And you want to know where he's leaning right now? Parker already moved his head. For those that don't know, his head tilted back because he
Listen,
already
listen.
Texas, Texas.
I love Mason James as a football player, man. That's one of the things that I don't know that I'll ever get. He could flame out at the next level. He could turn out to be a complete bust, and I still don't know that I would get it because the tape is awesome. And every setting I've ever seen him in, man, he has been awesome. And he's 5 miles
Yep.
down the road. But Jim Nagy gets paid a whole heck of a lot more to make these decisions than I get paid to talk about him. So if this is the route that Oklahoma wants to go, and let's face it, this is the route they're going, then more power to them. So be it.
Ooh. All right. So Daryl Revels with a
Ah,
$5 super
yes,
chat.
yes, yes. Fun
Okay.
super chat. I hear
Okay.
Parker speak glowingly of Peyton Houston. Would you consider him to be a better high school quarterback than Jackson Arnold was? Erase last season from memory. Yeah, and I have no trouble doing that with Jackson Arnold. It can be
He was
difficult for
unbelievable in
some
high
fan,
school.
like with us in our line of work. I don't think it's all that difficult to dissociate the high school prospect from the college player. And I do think Jackson Arnold's going to have a bounce back year at Auburn. I'm a
I do
believer in
too.
that. But
Yep.
at the high school level, he was fantastic,
Unbelievable.
absolutely
Yep.
brilliant in that Denton Guyer offense. That said, we still have 2 more years to watch Peyton Houston develop at the high school level before he takes his game to the college realm. And I've said this before, I will say it again. It's hard for me to draw parallels between a guy like Peyton Houston, whom I've only been watching intently for 1 year, and a guy like Jackson Arnold, who started for, well, or played 3.5 years of high school ball before I think everybody kind of came around to how good he actually was. It's difficult for me to compare a guy who's only halfway through the high school journey to a guy who finished it, had a full comprehensive 4 year career that started with getting thrown into emergency duty in the Texas State playoffs for Denton Guyer as a true freshman. So I I would like to stray away from that comparison for now and table it for later as to
Yeah.
whether there is any merit to. But I've said this before, and I will say it again. At this stage in his development, for being where he is as a high school sophomore, the only quarterback that I have ever seen in the 5 years that I've been doing it that is as developmentally advanced as Peyton Houston right now is Dylan Raiola. That's the list for me. It's Dylan Raiola, Peyton Houston. And so I don't know what Peyton Houston is going to be by the time he is a senior in high school. If he follows his current developmental trajectory, I fully expect that he's somebody that's going to be contending for the distinction of number one overall quarterback in the 2027 cycle. He's already number two for us at Rivals right now. So I think he could be in the conversation and I should be in that conversation right now. He's ranked outside the top 10 nationally among quarterbacks on a couple other sites, which I don't agree with that. But regardless, he should remain in the conversation. And I expect that he will until the time that he graduates high school for the distinction of being the number one quarterback in the 2027 cycle. And he's a guy that, if I had to rank the entire class of 2027, right now, without respect to how they will develop over the next 2 years of their high school journeys or what they will become at the collegiate level. We're just grading, okay, what are they right now? If we're
Hmm.
just looking at the every single prospect in the 2027 class for what they are right now today, Peyton Houston would have a 5-star grade for me. There's absolutely no question about it. The limiting factor there that I think a lot of schools are concerned about, not overly concerned, not like apprehensive about, but they're mindful of the fact that it could limit him at the collegiate level, and so they're taking a little bit more of a deliberate approach in recruiting him. It's the height, right? He's only about
Yeah.
5'11", and I think in this day and age, that's fine. The modern quarterback prospect does not need to be a giant. You don't need to
Nope.
have a 6'4",
5'10".
6'5" tree
Yep.
anymore. If you can create, um, well, if you can navigate the pocket as well and as instinctively as he does, if you can get outside the pocket and throw accurately on the run as he does, and if you can manipulate the pocket to create clear throwing lanes for yourself as he does, then I don't think the height is going to be much of a limitation for him at the next level. So even though he is somewhat undersized relative to what you consider the ideal quarterback prospect to be, I'm all in on Peyton Houston at this point. I think
I
he's going to be a star at the next level.
100% agree. And the funny thing is people ask that question. They train together now with the same guy. So there's that. Look, I just, for me, people, well, first off, I was reading the chat and, people are talking about you get Taco Tech recruits whenever you get a Taco Tech coach talking about Emma Jones. And, well, Dandridge is a 4-star. Dickerson's a 4-star.
All of the guys we mentioned are 4 stars. Every
Yeah,
single one
Davion
of them to a
Gross is the
man.
number like 52 player in the country. Daniel Odom is the number 101 player in the country. So like I don't understand um the hatred towards him. I mean, what does Turner rank? He's a 4-star, but where does he
He's a
rank?
4 star. Yep.
Yeah.
He's
But I
outside the
mean,
top 250. So
so point is everybody that we named you all that Oklahoma's in a good spot for at wide receiver are 4 stars or in the top 250. So I get the Mason James, like I get the frustration there. I do. I'm with y'all. It's a size thing. Look, Jim Nagy likes size. He likes taller guys. The funny thing is he's not a big size guy when it comes to quarterback because 5'10" or above is what you've got to be at quarterback now. It's usually between 5'2" and 5'10" and 6'2"
I'm
is where
quoting
the
you on that. Jim Nagy is not a big size guy. Brandon Drumm, May
well, he is a big
2025.
size guy except for quarterback. That's what I said. Let's let's not you paraphrased and and chose what you wanted to choose there. But the point is that 5'10" to about 6'2" is about the perfect quarterback range. Maybe 6'3", like there's that 5-inch kind of window that they like because they're mobile. They want a mobile quarterback. They want a guy that can move the pocket, like Parker said, can do a lot of things with their feet, can buy time, all that type of stuff, just like Peyton Houston can. He's more of a he's probably closer to, I think he was measured out like, I think I have it right here actually. I think it was 5'10", what, in a half, something to that extent. But that's all you have to be. That is all you have to be nowadays. And it's been proven time and again with the NFL draft. Like they don't go after the typical Peyton Manning, the 6'5" guys anymore.
Yeah.
The that's just not what they do. So
I mean, Steve Sarkisian took a quarterback last cycle that I I don't know if he's much taller than 5'9". KJ Lacey, I don't know what he's listed at,
correct.
but seeing that guy in person, he's about 5'9". But you see him throw the ball,
Yep.
and again, you're mindful of the fact that height doesn't matter as much as it once did at the quarterback position. You understand the vision that Sark and company have for a guy like KJ Lacey, who I'm referencing, because
Mhm.
he has an absolute rocket of an arm and can throw from multiple arm angles. Obviously, as I mentioned, really, really good at manipulating the pocket, as you kind of have to be
Yep.
these days. And so, yeah, I mean, look, the days of Jared Goff being the ideal quarterback prospect, I would say, at least
Yeah.
physically speaking, are long gone.
Yeah. It's totally changed. There's probably a lot of quarterbacks that played back in the late 90s, early 2000s that if they played today, they would have been top 10 picks and probably would have made it in the NFL if they played today. And that's the crazy part about it's just timing of everything. Yeah, man. I guess that's gonna do it. I know we were gonna talk some softball. They got the number two. Did you see, by the way, did you see before we go, did you see the reaction of Boston University girls? That was hilarious. I saw it
Yeah.
live
Yeah,
and
they
I
know what's
about fell
coming.
out of my chair. Like the moment that they had when they saw that was just like they jumped up for joy and then they were like, "Oh my God, are you serious?" That's like, and then they panned to every other team that got picked to go to Norman Regional, and they all had the same reaction. Like, so if we win, we got to play Oklahoma. Awesome, awesome. I wanted to see, did anybody react like that when they had to play Texas? When they got put in the Texas A&M region? I doubt it because I don't think Texas A&M. Which, how did that even happen? How did the number one team in the country not get the number one seed when you shared the conference title? Because they beat Texas? Didn't OU sweep Texas the week before? Didn't that happen? Did I forget about that? Or am I speaking truths? I don't know. I know 1 and 2 doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things, but I still was kind of frustrating. You won 4 in a row, Parker. You at least by virtue, if you're up there, you give them the one seed. Just until they get knocked off, right? At least that's what I feel. But maybe I'm wrong. Anyways, um, that's going to do it for this version of the OU Insider Under the Visor YouTube Live. If you're not a member of OU Insider, $9.95 a month, $99.95 for the whole year. We've dropped so much information on recruiting that it's not even funny over the last 10, 15 days. It's been insanity
Yeah,
over there.
folks, we give you what you pay for over
Yeah,
there.
it's been wild with the information. Multiple daily notes popping up for you guys. We're answering questions, talking to you guys. We even started talking about vacations today. We've talked about top 5 movies of all time. Like the community is awesome. It's awesome. It's fun. You can say whatever you want to say. You can do whatever you want to do. It's a blast. Just there to talk with OU fans about any sport. We cover every sport for you guys. OU Insider VIPs where it's at $9.95 a month, $99.95 for the whole year. College student, you have a .edu, email us from your .edu to ouinsider@rivals.com. You have to email us from your .edu. You email us from your .edu, we'll give you OU Insider for $11.95 for the whole year. Promo code we will send your way from that email, and you go put that in, you get it for less than $1 a month. Same thing from active duty military. Emails from your active duty military account to ouinsider@rivals.com. We will email you back with the promo code so you get $11.95 for the whole year. That's what you get. You get OU Insider basically 88% off. It's an amazing deal. Hit us up. We would love to have you on there with us. Join the thousands and thousands of OU fans already on OU Insider VIP. Again, $9.95 a month, $99.95 unless you're a college student. Emails from your .edu. Active duty emails from your active duty military. OU Insider @rivals.com. We want to thank Janet King for sponsoring us. Want to thank Prize Picks. Obviously, we want to thank our proud title sponsor, Riverwind Casino. Thank you guys so much for sponsoring us. For Parker Thune, for Spencer Forsythe on the board, my name is Brandon Drumm. You guys have a blessed day.